It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com. Go to emailrevealer.com. You get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You can also order all kinds of different services. Like, let's say you think your husband or your wife's cheating on you. You can send us their email address, and we'll trace it back to online dating websites and catch them cheating online. Okay, I got a big show for you today. We have Dolly Kyle, who has just written the book, Hillary, the Other Woman. Now, Dolly has a fascinating story. She's had a connection with the Clintons going back to high school, to both Bill and Roger. She was dating Bill Clinton for years and years. She was involved in the Paula Jones congressional investigation. So we got a lot to cover here. Dolly Kyle, are you there?
I am right here.
First question I got for you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Dolly Kyle?
Okay. Let me just start with what's most important probably to your listeners. And are you getting a feedback echo on this?
No, you sound great. And what I hear in my headset is what the audience hears. So.
Okay, perfect. We'll keep going.
Okay.
I grew up in Hot Springs, Arkansas, as did Billy Clinton. When I was 11 years old, I met Billy Clinton on the golf course at the Belvedere Country Club. And he was 12 going on 13. I was 11. And believe it or not, there was the Italian thunderbolt. We had an instant, strong, unbelievably deep, mutual, long-time attraction that started right there on the golf course. We became very good friends in high school, and we dated in high school. But I have to say, I did not have sexual relations with that band major, Billy Clinton, in high school. Okay? And I'm wagging my finger as I say that. Sorry you can't see it. Anyway, so Billy and I were very good friends for a long time before I ever met Hillary. So the title of the book, Hillary, the Other Woman, is a bit of a play of words on that, because when I met Hillary in 1974, well, I'd known Billy for 15 years at that point, so she was sort of the other woman, if you will, having come in later. And the other meaning of the other woman, and the reason we have her face away from the camera, and you see the back of her head on the cover of the book, is because she really is an other woman. She is not the person that she would have you believe she is. Now, I think people are beginning to see that through the WikiLeaks, through all the things that are coming out about this two-faced or more person. But I met her in 1974. I have observed the Clintons up close and personal for decades. And I wrote 3 loosely autobiographical novels that were something about my story with Billy and Hillary and all that. And those are on my website, but I want to say that there is no connection between this book, Hillary, the Other Woman, which is a completely true story, and the novels that are on my website. So people go to dollykyle.com and they look up and they see my bio and all that about me, and then they see novels and they don't see Hillary. You will not see the Hillary book on my website. You can get it through WND Books, which is my publisher, or through Amazon if they're in the mood to send it that day. But anyway, I didn't even want to write this book. I really didn't.
Let me ask you a couple questions.
But I have to tell you why I did it.
Go ahead.
Last December, I was looking at a pre-recorded TV show, and I saw commercials skim by, and it was Hillary on it, so I backed up and I looked at it, and that's that infamous piece where she looked in the camera with all the sincerity she could muster, and she said, women who claim to have been raped and sexually assaulted should be believed. We have to support them. Well, of course, that just set me off. I mean, this hypocritical liar who has attacked her husband's victims for 40 years had the nerve to say that. I will say she has subsequently removed that clip from her website because it set me off. rather than throw a shoe at the television, I started writing this book, and Juanita Broderick, who was raped by Billy in 1978, saw that same clip, and it got Juanita motivated to figure out how to do a tweet, and she sent a tweet out that went viral saying something like, Billy Clinton raped her in 1978. She's 73 years old now, and it never goes away. So that stupid, lying, hypocritical piece set the whole thing in motion.
By the way, this book here, Hillary, the Other Woman, you could find that too. There'll be a link to that in the Opperman Report bookstore as well.
Thank you.
But the first question I got, okay, that I got to ask you. Now, you're saying you were 11 and Bill was 12 when you met. But now, when I look at pictures of Bill and Hillary, and I look at pictures of you right now, they both look about 30 years older than you. How do you account for that?
Don't you just love it? Well, Billy was almost 13 when we met. He's 2 years older than I am, and we graduated together in the class of 1964 from Hot Springs High School. And yes, I am 2 years younger and graduated in the same class because I skipped 2 grades in school. So anyone who thinks I might be a bimbo, let's just get that out of the way right now.
So now you met at 11 and 12. Now, were you guys openly dating in grammar school and high school, or was this?
Oh yeah, I mean in high school, sure. We didn't date in grammar school,
okay.
But in high school we did, and we didn't go steady, but we were very close friends, and we would just talk for hours and hours and hours, and that was the basis of this friendship that went on for many years. Later, when we were both single adults, we began a sexual relationship, and that continued into Billy's marriage with Hillary and went on for decades. But most of the time when we saw each other, it was not for the purpose of having sexual relations, although obviously that happened. But we were what I thought was very good friends, and we talked. We talked about all kinds of issues, political, personal, family. His family and mine have been intertwined for decades. So it was a friendship that formed the basis of this relationship. And I would not have ever done what I'm doing now, but in 1992, when Billy was running for president, the same reporter who got the story about Jennifer Flowers and published that in Star Magazine
Right.
had the story about me. He left a message on my answering machine, wanted me to call him, yada, yada. I didn't call him, but I called Billy Clinton to warn him, and Billy, after back and forth, I'm making a long story pretty short here, Billy threatened. The threat was this: if you cooperate with the media, we will destroy you. And people ask when my relationship with Billy ended. That pretty much did it.
Now, let me ask you a question. Now, were you was that shocking to you that he would speak to you that way? Like, did you feel like you were an ally to him right before that?
Sure, absolutely. And I should not have been surprised because, as I wrote in that book and as I fictionalized in my novels, the night I met Hillary, the night Billy introduced me to Hillary, he turned his back on Senator J. William Fulbright. Bill Fulbright, I cannot overemphasize, was such an amazing, positive influence in Billy's life. He was more than a mentor. He was almost the father figure, the decent one that Billy never had. When Billy went to Georgetown, to college, Bill Fulbright gave him a job. Bill Fulbright introduced him to everyone who was anyone in Washington. Bill Fulbright, who had been, senator in Washington, he was senator in Arkansas for 30 years. Bill Fulbright helped Billy get the Rhodes Scholarship to go to Oxford. Bill Fulbright helped him get into Yale Law School. Bill Fulbright helped him get his teaching job at the University of Arkansas. And most importantly for this particular story, Bill Fulbright set up the meetings with the big money people in Northwest Arkansas who were funding Billy's campaign when he was running for Congress in 1974. And yet, the night of the primary election, May 28, 1974, when Billy was running for Congress and Bill Fulbright was in the battle of his life to keep his Senate seat, Billy came to Little Rock. He asked me to pick him up at the airport, which was no big deal. I'd done that before. Picked him up at the airport to take him to Fulbright headquarters. Well, Billy had this dowdy-looking middle-aged woman with him when he got off the plane. And then as she got closer, I realized she was just dowdy-looking and stunk to high heavens, but she was our age. And then he said, very surprisingly said to me, Dolly, this is Hillary Dolly. And you know what? She looked so bad and she smelled so bad. I thought it was some kind of a joke. And I figured it was somebody playing the part of Hillary because he had told me a couple of years before he'd moved in with this law school student named Hillary, and it was no big deal. But I figured he wouldn't have a roommate who looked and smelled like that. So I thought it was a joke. Anyway, we went to the TV station. Billy did his interview, and this dowdy-looking woman was watching the election returns. Well, we got in the car to go from the studio to the Fulbright headquarters for Billy to have pictures taken with Bill Fulbright. And he said, well, we're not going to Fulbright headquarters. We're going back to the airport. And I said, well, why? Fulbright's expecting you. He said, well, didn't you see the election returns? He's losing. I said, yeah, I know. I mean, so what? He said, so I don't want to be seen with a loser. And that made me so sick at my stomach to think that he would turn on Bill Fulbright like that. I didn't speak to Billy for about 2 years after that. I mean, it just made me nauseous. So I say all that to say that happened in 1974. So I should not have been surprised that 20 years later he would stab me in the back the same way he had stabbed Fulbright.
Okay, but
because he has no loyalty.
When he said that to you on the phone, though, did you immediately try and convey, no, Bill, I'm an ally, I'm not an enemy, let's work on this together?
No, I didn't say that. I hung up the phone and didn't speak to him again.
Really? Okay. Now, let's back up a little bit here. Because back in high school, again, you were also friends with Roger Clinton.
No, Roger Clinton's 10 years younger than Billy.
Okay. So then you don't know anything about Roger Clinton?
I know a lot about Roger, but okay. He was not in high school with us.
Okay.
We graduated in 64. He graduated in 74.
So then what can you tell us about Roger Clinton? Because he had that famous cocaine arrest. Was this something?
Well, I mean, what do you want to know about Roger, and what's that got to do with Hillary?
Well, because if you don't want to talk about Roger, you don't have to. Okay.
No, I don't mind, but we don't have a lot of time, and I think
right.
I thought we were going to focus on Hillary. Roger was a cocaine addict. He went to Federal Correctional Institute in Fort Worth. Billy asked me to go visit with Roger while he was over there. I went back and forth. I did that. I mean, as I said, our families were friends for decades, so this was not an unusual thing to happen. But Hillary didn't like Roger. Roger didn't like Hillary. No matter what they say today, they're liars, all of them.
Okay. But it was widely known that Roger was dealing coke at this period of time before he got arrested?
Well, yeah.
Okay, so Bill knew?
It was on the front page of the newspaper.
That was after he got caught.
Yeah, but people knew. I mean, people know things in Arkansas. It's a small town.
Right.
The whole state's a small town, shall we say. I mean, there were only 2 million people in the whole state back then.
Okay. Now, what about, again, before Bill was going into college, when he was picking colleges and stuff like that, like Georgetown and Oxford and these things, were you involved in his decision-making and that kind of stuff? No.
Billy did not tell me that. Well, you know what I think? He has this underlying insecurity around me, and people don't jump on this and say I'm a scorned woman and I'm blah blah blah. We were in the same class. I was 2 years younger. Billy dropped fourth year Latin when he found out I was going to be in there because he was scared of me in terms of intellectual capacity. He could not ever stand for anyone to look any better than he did, and that was a problem. So, there's this theme running through the whole story about Billy not sharing things like where he was applying to college, because what if he had not been accepted? He wouldn't want to say that to me.
Okay.
And that's, Billy and Hillary are still doing the same thing. Whatever part of a story in any way makes them look less than they want to appear, they just write it out. It's just taken from the script. It didn't exist. I mean, they've actually taken my pictures out of the family photo albums.
How would you know that? Out of their family photo albums that they have in their possession at the White House?
Well, I don't know where they have them now, but the ones that Virginia Clinton had at Virginia's house with Virginia. I mean, I told you, we're all friends for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did this rise of Bill Clinton, okay, who was a guy you knew in high school, a guy you knew at the country club, the golf course there, you met him at 11 years old. How did was there a guiding hand rising him up to Oxford, this Rhodes Scholarship, and then later on to go to Russia for his honeymoon and stuff like that? How did all that take place?
He didn't go to Russia for his honeymoon. I don't know where you got that.
Bill Clinton's never been to Russia?
I didn't say he'd never been to Russia, but he did not go to Russia for his honeymoon.
Well, then what are the circumstances behind the trip to Russia?
He was a student at Oxford in England, and I know there's all this talk about CIA connections and going to Russia under these clandestine circumstances. You know what? I don't know about that. I know that he traveled to various countries in Europe as any foreign student would. So there may be a nefarious connection with the CIA. I don't know about that. If he were a CIA agent, it's not the same. It's not the sort of thing he would tell people, is it? Because that's part of what they do, is they don't tell. But for a student in London to travel around Europe and Russia, to me, is just absolutely normal.
Okay. Now,
or can be. You know, it could be nefarious. It could be normal. I don't know.
Okay. Let me ask another question about Hillary. Okay.
Okay.
I just recently had Sally Miller on the show.
Who?
Sally Miller. The beauty queen.
I know Sally personally.
Okay, great. Okay, but she's a big fan of the show. She really likes it.
Oh,
okay.
good.
As a matter of fact, she hadn't done an interview in like 20 years, and then she happened to be friends with a listener to the show from the library down there, and then she wound up on a show here. And then everything's kind of taken off since then. Now, so now, were you aware of Sally dating Bill?
At the time, when she had her 3 or 4 month affair with him in 1983 or 4, whatever it was,
right.
I was not aware that he was having an affair specifically with Sally Miller. Billy's always had tons of women, and once I found out that I was a sex addict and confronted him with that issue, and he admitted he was a sex addict, he told me he had had sex with 2,000 women. So nothing surprises me. Any names that come up don't surprise me. What your listeners need to realize is that they may know the names of 12 or 20 women, something like that, but the 2,000 other women are terrorized. They're fearful to speak up and say anything, so that's why you're not going to hear from the rest of them. Because Hillary has been a terrorist from day one to protect her coattail ride to the White House. She had to protect Billy, and, that's what she did with Sally Miller and everyone.
Right. That brings up a good point, because other people I've talked to, and long before, even before the primaries, and when I was doing shows about the Clintons and stuff like that, and I would talk to people that knew them, Roger, and knew Bill in high school. All those people, men and women, are all terrified to talk about them, which is why I was surprised to find you. Now, one of the things that Sally talks about was Hillary having a couple of abortions. One while they were married and one before they were married. Do you know any information about that?
I only have the same information that everyone else has by way of Sally and Jennifer Flowers and other people who have said these things. I also very recently got information that's quite credible with someone who's not agreed to come forward yet, and maybe would be violating some HIPAA laws if they did, about a subsequent abortion that Hillary had. Here's the thing, and I talk about this in my book, Hillary, the Other Women. There are things that I know, there are things I've heard, and I make it very clear what's what, which is fact, what is rumor, and what I can't substantiate. So different people have different pieces of the story.
Right. Okay, now, what do you know about what was going on down there in Arkansas at the Mena airport?
I do not have firsthand personal information about what was going on at Mena.
Okay. Bill never mentioned Mena to you?
No. And what you need to understand, again, about different pieces of the story coming from different people, Billy, like other sex addicts and different kinds of addicts, it doesn't really matter in a lot of regards, because one of the things that people like that do, that, of course, they're hiding major things in their lives, and they are pigeonholing and hiding things from different people. So they will say something to one person because they know that person would not berate them for it or shame them or put them down. So Billy could do cocaine with Sally Miller and Jennifer Flowers, as they've testified. But he would never think about doing that with me because he knows how anti-drug I was and always have been. So you see, but then he might tell me something else, and a lot of things that I know, that he wouldn't have said to someone else just because of the relationship he and I had.
Okay, gotcha. But now what about when you were visiting Roger in prison? Did he mention anything about Mina? No. Okay. But cocaine use by Bill, you're familiar with that? You didn't witness it, but you're familiar with it.
No, I did not witness it, and I was familiar with it, and, Roger talked about it. Roger had a $5,000 a week cocaine habit, supposedly, back when $5,000 a week was a lot of money. And, supposedly, when the state police or whoever it was investigating Roger, they went to Billy and asked, if they should back off and not arrest him, and really? Billy supposedly said, go ahead and do what you got to do. Which sounds like an upstanding position of integrity, but I don't know what else was going on behind the scenes, because you can very rarely take anything the Clintons do at face value. You have to either follow the money or figure out what nefarious purpose they have in mind or what story they're trying to rewrite at the time.
Fascinating. Now what about how could he be funding a $5,000 a week cocaine habit? This guy must have been doing quite a bit of business.
By dealing.
Yeah, right. That's quite a bit of dealing, and that's
I don't know, because I never used it. I don't know how much the stuff cost.
Right.
I could think of a lot of things I'd spend $5,000 a week on before it would be some mind-altering substance. I mean, my life's fine the way it is, although some people would argue with that, considering what I've been through. But, here's the deal. I had this relationship with Billy, and it was wrong. And for people who want to scorn me because I did that, I know it was wrong. I've repented. I've changed my life. I went into a sex addiction program, went through the 12 steps. I did all of that for years, and I wrote my first novel as a therapeutic journal and then turned it into a novel, and it has that journey in it. So I think anyone who has ever struggled with and overcome an addiction will understand what I'm saying, and if you haven't and you can't understand it, well, God bless you, because you can't understand it from the outside, and just be thankful that you know that you can't understand it.
Well, the thing is, it's not like the wedding vows of Bill and Hillary were like carved in stone, and they took these vows to be so sacred, that they never neither one of them ever strayed. You described their relationship as being more of a business relationship, which many people do, correct?
Well, it was a political relationship. She was riding his coattails to the White House. And the story is, and I don't know this to be true, but it sounds like, Billy, that he was in the bathroom in the house making out with some other woman while Hillary's putting on her wedding dress that she had bought at a department store the night before.
Okay, well, not too hard to believe. Now, what about, did Bill ever mention to you anything about Hillary having affairs? Or relationships with other people?
Yeah.
Okay. With men, with women?
Well, this was one night, it was, let me think, spring of 1979. I was visiting with Billy at the governor's mansion. And by the way, when they left the governor's mansion, Hillary had all the visitors' logs shredded so that my visits and any other woman's visits all disappeared. I mean, I know you'd be shocked that a woman who was later Secretary of State would destroy documents, but, that actually happened. Anyway, Billy and I were at the governor's mansion, and it was a particularly sweet and innocent, intimate moment. And Billy said, I want to have a baby. And I was a bit taken aback by that, and I said, well, do you think that's a good idea? I mean, we're both married to different people. And then he was a little taken aback, and he kind of laughed. He says, oh, I didn't mean with you, silver-tongued devil. So then that's when we talked about it. He said that they needed to have a baby so that they would look like a normal couple, and it would take attention away from the warden's lifestyle. Now, the warden is what he called Hillary. He never used her name to me. After the night, he said, introduced us, Dolly, this is Hillary, Hillary Dolly. He called her the warden. And some of the state police in Arkansas picked up on that. They kind of liked it, too. So I think it still fits. She's always been trying to control him, but she can't, because he's an out-of-control addict. But it's all such a convoluted mess. And I do, in the book, Hillary the Other Woman, I talk about this in short 4, 5, 6-page chapters, discreetly headed so that people can go through this. You can read one chapter here, there, and they make sense individually, because I know that media people particularly don't have time to read a whole book before they do an interview with me. So that's the way I wrote this book, and it really does explain everything from the very background of Hot Springs and Billy's childhood and Hillary's childhood, because here's the thing. There is nothing new with these people. I mean, honestly, just like Satan, who is not creative and keeps doing the same temptations over and over and over again, the Clintons keep committing the same crimes over and over and over again for the same reasons over and over and over again. And so anything that happens, anything that comes out in WikiLeaks today or tomorrow is already in the book, foreshadowed, foretold, and foundationalized, because there's nothing new with them.
A couple of questions for you. One thing is, when you mentioned the warden's lifestyle, you believe that lifestyle to be a lifestyle of lesbianism?
Yes.
Okay. But other than that one statement, was there any other statements from Bill?
No, I mean, it was such a given. You know what I'm saying? It's like everybody knew it. It's not like something you have to sit there and talk about. And, I was a psychology major before I went to law school. And one of the things that I learned is that 80% of communication in a family is nonverbal. Well, that is somewhat true in all relationships. If I get to know you well, I don't have to define words that I'm using, because you know me. You know what I mean. You know what I'm saying. So when Billy said the warden's lifestyle, I knew exactly what he meant. I didn't have to say, oh, what do you mean by lifestyle? Duh.
Right. Let me ask a quick question, then we're going to be taking a break. You mentioned how your whole life of knowing the Clintons and your whole life of dealing with the Clintons, that they're committing the same crimes over and over and over again. Why are there are never any consequences to the Clintons for this life of crime? Chapter
47.
Okay.
Media Magic, or How to Make a Story Disappear. And I go through my own up close and personal incidents with CNN and NBC and the various news organizations about how they hid the Clinton stories. So you multiply that by thousands and thousands and maybe 10,000s of stories around the country. It's the same thing they're still doing. Now, there were from time to time young idealistic journalists who wanted to tell the truth about the Clintons, but the higher-ups nixed those stories, and in some cases, those journalists got in serious trouble for even daring to present the truth. So now what we have is a media that's been complicit in the Clinton crimes for all these years, and what kind of a turnaround would it be? I mean, how can they turn around and say, oops, we were wrong for 30 years? But, Mark Twain got it right. He said, it is easier to fool people than to convince them they were fooled.
You know what? I can corroborate what you're saying there. I was just at the Hillary rally here in Las Vegas. I was broadcasting live from there, and I've covered. I traveled with the Bernie bus. I was on the Bernie Sanders bus, and I've covered Trump rallies, all these, and the Clinton staff, the way they treat the press. Now, if they cater food, they're catering food for you, and they're very attentive They're very attentive to what you're doing. They're watching what you're doing. They're listening to what you're doing. Do you need anything? Do you need a ride? You see them, these big people from MSNBC and stuff. They're offering them rides back and forth to the hotels and stuff. So they definitely have a relationship with the press that none of these other campaigns seem to even attempt. Now, what about threats and intimidation to the press? Is that anything I should be worried about? That you know about?
Well, if you were on Hillary's enemies list back in 1993 when they first got in the White House, and I talk about this in the book, Hillary the Other Woman. I talk about the various scandals that had the word "gate" attached to them, which I think the media is the media's way of poo-pooing these things and making your eyes glaze over and not even pay attention. But a critical piece to understanding what happened with the impeachment and everything else is this thing called Filegate. If we have time, we can talk about it after the break or
we got plenty
whenever.
of time. Okay, we're here with Dolly Kyle. And she has a website called dollykyle.com where she promotes her novels that she's written. I believe it's 3 novels. But also, too, she's the author of this recent book, which is a nonfiction book, Hillary the Other Woman. And you can find that at Amazon.com or WorldNet Daily, I believe. WorldNet Daily, it's selling it for you?
WND Books, yes.
WND Books. And also, too, OperaReport.com. We'll be right back with more of Dolly Kyle right after these messages. Hold on. Thank you so much, Dolly. And now a word from our sponsors. Did you know that 30% of all people on online dating websites and personal ads are either married or in a monogamous relationship? 30%. If you suspect that your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend may be cheating online, go to emailrevealer.com. On our online infidelity investigation. You give us their email address, and we can trace it back to online personal ads, dating sites, and social networks. We can even expand the investigation and find them cheating on escort service sites or even porn sites if they're registered to porn sites and swinger sites. So check out emailrevealer.com if you suspect your spouse is cheating, and check out our online infidelity investigation. William Ramsey is a producer here at the Opperman Report, and he's just come out with a new book, Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. Now, he just sent me a copy of this book. Oh, boy, it's about 2 inches thick, and there's a chapter on just about everybody in this book that you can imagine. The Beatles, and Jack Parsons, everybody's in here. It's incredible. And I definitely recommend this book. There's a bunch of pictures in here, too, of all these people and different chapters and information. Anselm LaVey and people I've never heard of, too. There's a whole bunch in here. JFC Fuller. I don't know who he is. But it's great stuff by our producer here, William Ramsey. So check out Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. You can find it on Amazon.com, or you could find it in the OppermanReport.com bookstore. We have an urgent bulletin. It seems that the group Strawman is still on the loose. It has been confirmed that Strawman are Canadian, okay, and that authorities are asking people to stay indoors, lock your doors and windows until this group can be dealt with. You could find more information about this group of Canadians, at strawmanmusic.com. You can have your ad played here. Okay, we're looking for sponsors. Okay, in fact, we desperately need sponsors right now to take this show to the next level. So you can have your ad played here, read live, like I'm doing now, so artfully. Or we can even work up a little jingle for you with some music and stuff like that and play it here. You have no idea how inexpensive it would be to have your ad played on the Opperman Report on 7 stations. live Friday night, and another 7 stations live on Saturday night, plus replayed every day of the week on different stations, and then archived on YouTube, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and all different kinds of podcasts, Pod This and Podbean, all different kinds of places who archive the show for us. And on those archives, your ad would play indefinitely, forever. You also get a little banner on OppermanReport.com. You get a mention on the air, you get a little interview on the air, and all kinds of fun stuff if you sponsor Opperman Report. We have an opportunity to get this show on a major AM/FM station in California. We've been approved. So if you want to sponsor us into that, so incredibly inexpensive that your ad would be heard by a the range covers 5 million people in population, where your ad would be broadcast, and all these other stations would be thrown in for free. So really affordable prices to sponsor OppermanReport.com. Get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You can get a copy of that book at emailrevealer.com, or you can get a copy of that book now. It's back up on Amazon.com. How to Become a Successful Private Investigator by Ed Opperman. And this book has been updated a little bit from the previous book that we had that was available to our wonderful listeners. Welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here today with Dolly Kyle from DollyKyle.com. She has a couple of her novels up there. She's the author of the nonfiction book, Hillary the Other Woman. Now, Dolly, a little background on you. The foreword to your book, The Other Woman, Hillary the Other Woman, was written by David Shippers, who was the attorney for the House Committee on Impeachment. And that you were part of these. What was your involvement in all those? We keep hearing about all these conspiracy theories have been investigated. Oh, they've all been poo-pooed. Oh, they've been done to death. All this stuff from the past, 90 years ago, Clinton's. But you were there for a lot of this, okay? And we can't forget, Bill Clinton was impeached. Bill Clinton was disbarred. Bill Clinton did have to pay a settlement to Paula Jones. What was your involvement in all this? What your involvement?
Okay, as Dave Shippers says in the foreword, after all of the FBI investigations and everything around the impeachment, they asked me to be the chief prosecution witness for the Clinton impeachment because I had incontrovertible proof of Billy's perjury, suborning perjury, witness tampering, and obstruction of justice in a federal lawsuit. Okay? And there were no lies in my history about this whole story. The other women who were involved at various times signed affidavits recanting their stories because after they were threatened and intimidated by Hillary, they changed their stories. And I never did. I never changed my story. But the difference with mine, I was subpoenaed to testify in the Paula Jones case because actually Paula's lawyers had read my first novel. And in that novel, I talk about, of course, a fictionalized character who had sex addiction. And the lawyers called me up and asked about that, and I said, yes, Billy in actuality did confess to being a sex addict. And you see, I traced my own sex addiction back to when I was a 16-year-old virgin, and I was raped. After being drugged, I was drugged and raped by one of Billy Clinton's friends. And ultimately, that led to the path of sex addiction. For some people, it goes to frigidity. But at any rate, I was called in the Jones case to witness about Billy's confessing to be a sex addict, which would help put the Paula Jones sexual harassment issue in perspective. This was not just a random act by a sitting governor, but this was a pattern and practice of a person who was a sex addict. And people can go online. You can go online and look up Dolly Kyle, Paula Jones deposition. And you can read the Clintons' take on me. Billy's own lawyers established in my deposition that Billy and I had a long-term sexual relationship that was consensual. So their intention was to establish that our relationship was consensual, and therefore my testimony about a sexual harassment issue would be irrelevant, and they were going to throw that out based on that. of course, what happened 2 months later, Billy lied under oath about me. So not only did he lie under oath, he submitted handwritten notes and lied about those. And all this is in his own handwriting. Also appended to the deposition are some letters that Billy hand wrote to me that were subpoenaed in the Jones case. So, yeah, go look it up. You don't even have to take my word for it. It's all out there in the words of the Clintons' own lawyer. And then 2 months after my deposition, Billy lied under oath and said, I never had sexual relations with that woman, Dolly Kyle. And he also said that he tried to be nice to me in high school. You know, like I'm the pitiful, ugly girl that he needed to be nice to.
Well, I could testify you're not ugly. I could testify to that right now. I'm looking at your Facebook page. So if they want to call me, to come down.
Yeah, the Facebook picture, it was one. I wanted to use that on my book jacket, but my publisher wanted a more glamorous shot, which I refused to go and do. So they pulled an older shot from Getty Images to use with the book. That picture that you're looking at is taken last April in my living room on my cell phone. It's just a close-up, candid shot of who I am because I'm 68 years old. I don't want people to think I look 40 and then I show up at a book signing and they think, well, what happened to you? So anyway, I believe in truth in advertising, and that's who I am, and that's what I look like.
Okay, now, I've had a lot of these women on the show, Kathleen Willey and Juanita Broderick. Now, with the Jennifer Flowers case, right, Hillary Clinton went out and hired private investigator Anthony Pellicano in order to discredit her, and also to allegedly to discredit Monica Lewinsky. Now, here's a guy who today is in prison for having C4 explosives, wiretapping, threats, killing people's pets and killing people's animals and stuff like that. Now, with your involvement in all this, have you received any threats, any harassment, private investigators following you, stalking you, harassing you, killing your pets? What can you tell us?
I can tell you that Billy Clinton threatened to destroy me, and the way they intended to do that and the way Hillary tried to do that was through the one thing that I valued, other than my children, of course, and grandchildren, but my reputation, because I was an award-winning lawyer in Texas. I hate to toot my own horn, but as my daddy said, take a hint from the band. Everyone toots their own horn. I was elected to be a fellow of the Texas Bar Foundation. That's an honor limited to 1/3 of 1% of Texas lawyers for outstanding contributions to the administration of justice. So my reputation was very important to me. And what Hillary did was had that sniveling sycophant Sidney Blumenthal,
right,
whom we all know now, produced the video story about Benghazi. He produced a completely false story about me, gave it to his buddy Jane Mayer, who worked for the New Yorker magazine, and they printed that in the New Yorker, and that's one of the things that I sued Billy and Jane Mayer and all of this. I didn't know about Sidney at the time. I didn't know he was a connection. So I sued them for that, for trying to defame me and thereby stop the publication of my first novel, which, by the way, they were very successful at doing. So then a reporter from the Washington Post got hold of that story about Jane Mayer that was Jane Mayer in the New Yorker, and flew to Dallas and interviewed me, believed my story, said, oh my gosh, this is front page news for the Washington Post, and a month later they printed it in a Sunday supplement as a fluff piece about visiting me in Dallas. And then I found out that Jane Mayer was married to the editor of the Washington Post. Hello.
Yeah, a little note for the audience. We just did a show about the overthrow of the Libyan government, and Sidney Blumenthal, his hands are all over that too. And these WikiLeaks, he comes out advising the Secretary of State to invade a sovereign country because of all the gold that they have, the amount of gold and the amount of silver that they have over there.
Yeah, I don't. And speaking of precious metals, look what Hillary's Secretary of State did. Can't talk. Secretary of State took all that money for the Clinton Foundation and turned over 20% of the United States supply of uranium to the Russians.
Yeah.
So, also, what she's doing now is trying to say that the Russians are behind these WikiLeaks and make the Russians into the bad guys. Well, I'm sorry. Hillary's the bad guy. And the only thing that she accomplished as Secretary of State was disrupting the situation in North Africa and the Middle East and set up the stage for ISIS and for the terrorism we have now. And you know what? As I said, she's quite comfortable with terrorism because she is a terrorist. She has used threats, violence, and intimidation to achieve a political aim, and she's been doing this since she shredded Marla Kreider's notes at the University of Arkansas in 1974. Hillary Scissorhands is still at it. She's now using a computer with a cloth wiping the screen, right?
Yeah.
But same person. As I said, there's nothing new with what the Clintons are doing. You know, the machines may change. It may go from scissors to paper shredders to email, whatever you call that, bleach bit thing. But it's the same stuff. They are continually changing the record to suit the story, the narrative that they want to give, just like Billy's ridiculous story at the Democrat National Convention about this meeting with Hillary in the Yale Law School library, and
right.
The space across the room gets longer with every telling, and it's just insane, but that's what they do. And those of us who talk about it, I mean, Alex Jones and I talked about this last week on InfoWars. Those of us who talk about the insane things that the criminals Clintons have done, I mean, we're the ones that end up sounding like wackos because we're talking about these wackos. We're talking about the conspiracies that the Clintons have actually been involved in for all these years. I mean, the WikiLeaks is starting to show this. People are starting to see it a little bit. But those of us who've been watching this on the inside for years, decades even, are not surprised by any of it.
Yeah, they don't do much to cover their tracks. If you look at what they've done in Haiti with the Clinton Foundation, what they've done in Libya, we just said. But now, are you concerned right now? Because it seems to be right now that they're really consolidating their power, okay? And there no holds barred what's going on to put this woman in power over our country. Are you concerned going forward for your own safety?
No, and I will tell you why.
Okay.
I am a Christian. I have sinned as all have. I have been forgiven. I am doing what I believe is the right thing to do. And I claim the protection promises of Psalm 91. And for years, I have been claiming Isaiah 54:17. No weapon forged against me shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against me shall fall to me. And I started that back when they were planning false stories about me, telling false stories about me in the media, all of that. And I said, every tongue that rises against me shall fall to me. Well, I will tell you now, you put me side by side with Hillary Clinton, and most people, when asked which one of these women is lying, knows that Hillary is the liar.
I'm glad you said that because I'm a Christian as well, and I also believe it's the only thing keeping me safe and alive here.
Absolutely, and people ask me what I'm doing to protect myself. Here's the thing. I mean, I grew up in Hot Springs. I know about hits. I know that Seth Rich, for example, the Democrat National Committee employee who was killed last summer, was hit. That was a clear hit. I grew up in a town of hits. And so what I know is if someone truly wanted me dead, okay, they could manage that, but God is protecting me. And, people go out on the mission fields all the time, and they have God's protection, and yet they get massacred by fanatical Muslim jihadists. It happens. But Alex and I talked about that, too. And he said, I love my life. I love my children. I want to live. However, if I die in the course of doing this, I know I have died doing the right thing. And that is a very important piece of this whole picture. I love the United States of America. And I grew up thinking I was a Marine. I remember being 2 years old. My daddy put me up on a swing. It scared me, and it was so high. And my daddy said, Marines get scared, but we do it anyway. And I heard that so much as I was spending time with him up until I was 11 when he died. I just thought I was a Marine. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that Marines got scared, but we did it anyway. And there you have it.
Now, you're over there in Arkansas. You know all the scuttlebutt. You tune into everything. What can you tell us about this kid, Danny Williams?
I believe the story. I believe Danny's story. And anyone who looks it up, it's Danny with an E-Y.
Right.
Danny Williams' mother was Billy Williams, the prostitute. Now, the one thing I have absolutely wrong in my book, according to Danny's story now, and I believe him, is that I believed the story that I got from absolutely everyone in Little Rock, that his mother, Bobby Williams, had immigrated to Australia with him, when in fact, according to Danny's testimony on Alex Jones' InfoWars last week, was that his mother went to prison. She was a prostitute, and he was raised by his aunt. He went from pillar to post. He was in foster homes. He had a very, very tough life, and he was always told that he was Billy Clinton's son. Obviously, it would take a DNA test to prove that, but I have no reason to disbelieve it.
Yeah, plus you look at them, they look identical. And just imagine how this kid's life could have been changed if he just got a little,
He dropped out of school in the 11th grade to work in a donut shop, and Billy Clinton gets a pass to Oxford and Yale Law School. I mean, really? And Hillary is not a racist. She doesn't hate black people just like she hates Hispanics and Jews and Hicks and Catholics
yeah.
and effing retards. You know, all this is in the book.
Yeah. Oh, no, wait, now, you heard her say something about effing retards, too? Because we just had Sally Miller come on and say that. What do you have on that, quick?
I don't know where Sally Miller got that. She might have gotten it from me.
No, she got it from Bill. Bill told her that.
Okay.
Real quick, because we only got a couple minutes left. And thank you so much. And I hope you come back. I hope I can get you to come back.
I'm getting so tired of hearing myself talk.
I'll do all the talking next time. I'll do all the talking next time.
Okay, I wish that everyone would just read the book. And for the past several months, I mean, you know this, I have been saying to people, if you cannot afford to buy the Kindle version of the book for $8.69, go to my website, dollykyle.com, send me an email saying you can't afford the book, and I will send you a check to pay for it. You don't have to have a Kindle device. You can read it on your computer, iPad, or iPhone, as I do mine. And my assistant has been mailing out checks on Mondays ever since I started that offer. Well, last week, I talked to my publisher, and I said, please, let us give this book free for the next several weeks so people can read it before the election. And the deal with Amazon did not allow that, but we reduced the price to $2.99. So I think everyone can afford it now. And guess what? If you can't afford $3, send me an email through my website, and we'll send you a check for $3.
Okay, great. Well, you can't beat that. Okay, that's someone who wants to get the information out there.
Exactly.
Now, one of Bill Clinton's friends, billionaire, convicted pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein. He came to the public attention because he was flying Bill Clinton around on his plane there. It's come out now that Bill Clinton's been on that plane 24 times. 4 of those times, he ditched his Secret Service protection. We find out now that Jeffrey Epstein, from his own attorneys, that he claims he helped found the Clinton Foundation. Now, so a lot of stuff going on there. What can you tell us about what you know about Bill Clinton and his proclivities? Is this something that could be possible?
Absolutely, it could be possible. Again, I go back to sex addiction, and I was in a 12-step program. I was in therapy for sex addiction for myself. I heard stories that would curl your hair about things that sex addicts have done. They're not all criminals. Some sex addicts are abusing their own selves, okay? I'll just say that. And so the way these things manifest themselves is different in different people. What I have come to realize from talking to my new friend, Juanita Broderick, is that Billy obviously has a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde personality, and he can turn... rape is not so much a sex crime as it is a crime of anger and control and violence. It isn't about sex. Sex requires a relationship and a bonding and something that means something. Rape is a violent crime. And Billy is capable of that because he raped Juanita Broderick. And if anyone doesn't believe that, go find it on YouTube, the interview with Lisa Meyer. And then, here's the thing. Juanita didn't report the rape in 1978 any more than I reported the rape of me in 1964, because we didn't do that, because we knew we would be persecuted if we claimed rape of anyone. And particularly, he was the attorney general running for governor when he raped Juanita. But if she had filed a criminal charge against Billy for the rape, she could have filed a criminal charge against Hillary Clinton as an accessory after the fact for threatening her after Billy raped her. It's just like one of your friends robs a bank and brings the loot to hide at your house. You become an accessory after the fact. If your friend robs a 7-Eleven and you drive the getaway car, you are an accessory after the fact. If Billy Clinton rapes someone and Hillary threatens them to keep them silent, she's an accessory after the fact. It's a crime.
But specifically this pedophile and this the pedophilia that surrounds Jeffrey Epstein, the woman who was procuring these little girls for him, later on shows up at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. There's a picture of her there right next to Bill.
Right.
That particular kind of behavior, does that shock you? You find it possible? What do you think?
No, it's not shocking at all. And one of the manifestations of sex addiction is the sex addicts. This is just one manifestation, but their propensity to want to have various women with whom they've had sex all in the same room together. They get kind of a kick out of that. That's not anything particular to me, but I'm just saying Billy Clinton obviously had women at parties at the governor's mansion with whom he had sex, besides Hillary, besides me, others at the same time. So there is nothing, I cannot emphasize this enough, there is nothing that I would put past Billy Clinton in terms of his sex addiction, in his untreated, insatiable, uncontrolled sex addiction that turns him from Dr. Jekyll into Mr. Hyde, where he can commit a violent crime. And guess what? I'm not even sure he knows he does it, because he is such a pathological liar. He and Hillary both. They're pathological liars who believe their own stories. You know, pathological liars can often pass lie detector tests because they believe themselves, and that's why they sound so believable to other people. And as I said, Mark Twain covered it best when he said, "It is easier to fool people than it is to convince them they have been fooled." Billy has fooled people about the Jeffrey Epstein. First, he said he'd been on the flights with him maybe 5 times or something, and then the flight logs show 26 times, and then, as you say, 4 or 5 of those times he managed to leave his Secret Service detail behind. Don't tell me that pedophile pervert, Jeffrey Epstein, didn't have hidden cameras in the room, and whatever Billy was doing with whomever is on tape. I have no doubt about it. And this is why this kind of behavior is susceptible to blackmail. And it would be ironic for the Clintons to be blackmailed after all they've done with the files and the enemies list and threatening and intimidating other people. I mean, you know, you call it karma, call it reaping what you sow, call it the chickens coming home to roost. It is time for the Clintons to be prosecuted for the crimes that they've committed and the crimes that they've committed against other people. Wouldn't it be ironic for it to just come back on them the same way they did it to other people? I love that idea.
And the audience should know, go to OppermanReport.com. We have there the 24-page letter where Jeffrey Epstein's attorneys claim that Jeffrey Epstein helped to create the Clinton Foundation. So this is not some passing friendship. Dolly Kyle, I love you. Listen, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Have a wonderful day.
Okay, thank you so much, Dolly. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, there you had it. Dolly Kyle, author of the book Hillary, the Other Woman. And you go to her website, dollykyle.com, where you could find her, novels that she's written. If you enjoyed this show, like I said, if you go to OppermanReport.com, we have that 24-page letter with Jeffrey Epstein's his attorney, Jerry Lefcourt. I wanted to get into what you thought of Ken started. So much I want to ask this one, but it was kind of tough. Also, too, Gary Byrne, the Secret Service agent, who talks about all these things we talked about here today, too. That's in our members section. We have the search warrant execution of Jeffrey Epstein's house. We have all the Jeffrey Epstein litigation documents on there, many of them. This new lawsuit with Epstein and Trump. So that's in the Opperman Report members section, and you go there, you support the show, you become a member, you get additional content, but it also helps to support the show that we do for you for free Friday night and Saturday night, and all these impromptu shows. I do these remote broadcasts from the Hillary rallies and stuff like that. That's how we're funding all this, okay, through sponsorships, through donations, and through the member section. So thank you so much. And thank you, Dolly Kyle, dollykyle.com. Hillary, the Other Woman, you can find the book at OppermanReport.com bookstore.